When we talk about the learning methodology, we're talking about the underlying ways in which people learn and the factors that will make a piece of learning highly effective. So we're thinking about the context that learning is experienced within. We're thinking about how we will demonstrate the things that people need to know. And there are some pieces within the learning methodology which are particularly important. The ways that people can explore the subject that they're learning, and the ways that we can support them to reflect on what they're learning. Because remember, everything we're trying to do with the learning architecture is to make the learning practical and applied. And that comes from using the learning methodology to create the right spaces for people to carry out those activities within. The learning methodology is something that we will use at the early stages in the design of a learning solution. It will help us make key decisions about how we are going to design the learning, and particularly the different approaches to learning that we will use. So when we understand the context of the learning, when we understand something about the reality of the learner that's going to be using it, and when we understand something about the subject that we're teaching, we can choose the correct components to make a learning experience where people can learn from us, but also explore and experiment with the learning themselves. So you can think of the learning methodology as the foundation. It lets us do a lot of our thinking very early about how we're going to structure the learning. And what you'll find out later on is how we can use those foundations to build a really solid and crucially an effective piece of learning. But it all starts with that underlying understanding of how people learn. When it comes time for you to use the learning methodology, as with all parts of the learning architecture, you'll see it structured with thinking, planning, and doing. And the learning methodology is something that you can follow through in sequence. So it's one of the first pieces of the architecture that you'll be using, and you'll use it to set the context for the learning that you're going to design.